What's up? Welcome back. Another week of the AllSooners Softball Show, and it's a supersized episode for a supersized weekend. The Oklahoma Sooners open Love's Field, and what a facility it is. Stunning, beautiful, expansive. I think my good friend Eddie Radosevich put it best. They literally built a palace for Patty Gasso. What an incredible weekend it was. And it was bookended by a pair of thrillers. A 7-inning contest. Miami of Ohio pushed Oklahoma to the limit. The Sooners won the opener at Love's Field. Then a pair of run rules on Saturday. An easy performance on Friday night. Then the stunner. Louisiana upsets the Sooners, snaps the NCAA record 71-game winning streak on Sunday. We're going to dive into all of that with my good friend but OU alumni, Nicole Mendes. She hopped on, she joined the show, gave us a ton of time breaking down Love's Field, the games, all that stuff. So stick around. On the other side, we're going to dive right into that interview with Nicole, and then we're going to close out with some thoughts from Alyssa Brito, Jada Coleman, Patty Gasso, Kinsey Hansen. All of that we'll dive into and more here on the All Sooners Softball Show. Firing off right now. All right, what's up? We're going to get right into it. You can see her like right next to me, but if you'll allow me, I personally have not got to do this for a hot minute. So we are now joined by two-time national champion. She is the queen of the triple. She was an Olympian, is an Olympian, will always be an Olympian. She is the host of the, I'm so terrified I'm going to tongue twister this, 10 Teams, 2 Rings podcast, a Softball America, part of their expansive podcast network. She's an all-around great human. You've heard her on Flow. You've heard her on ESPN. You've heard her on the OU radio broadcast. And it's one of the better humans I know in the entire world. It's Nicole Mendes. Sorry, Nicole. I've had a little, I've been sad I haven't got to roll that out here in a hot minute.
Woohoo!
I know, right? If you, oh, the fireworks. Boom. There we
I
have
knew
it.
I was forgetting one, the double thumbs up. That's how excited I am to be here.
Yeah, Nicole was showing me all of her Zoom stuff before we actually got going, got recording. If you don't know, Nicole and I did radio together for 2 great years. Then she left us. She's on to bigger and better things now. I'm so stoked with Nicole. You can hear her on all the great Flow stuff. You heard her as Oklahoma opened Love's Field on Friday. I'm not going to reveal your whole schedule, but I'm sure she's all over the place. She's done regionals, all that fun stuff for ESPN. Nicole, welcome aboard. Thank you. I'm happy we finally got to link up.
I'm so happy. My gosh, I've missed our weekly chats. Had them for 2 years.
I know. You've had enough. Everyone's had enough. But what better show to bring you in? There's so much to cover. Obviously, a 5-game set. Love's Field opens up. A winning streak comes to an end. All that stuff. Too much to like hit all deep dive. So let's just start at the beginning, Nicole. Friday, we all gathered for a monumental day, not just in Oklahoma softball, but Oklahoma sports, in the landscape of women's sports, collegiate sports, pro sports. It was setting standards, Love's Field. And before we even get to the game and the thriller that kind of opened up the weekend, Nicole, it's finally here. I have an inkling that you were recruited, saying that you were probably going to play in that stadium. I think that's kind of how all facilities kind of go, is that at some point someone's like, you're going to play in a new stadium. But what was it like to finally see that just palace in person?
I mean, I was talking with Erin Miller and she's like, I've been hearing that since '08. And I was told that whenever I was an 8th grader and I was on my very first visit to Oklahoma. And something you dream about, you think about, obviously, I would have loved to play in that stadium. But walking in, I immediately got a little teared up. I got to see a ton of alums and all of us that whole entire weekend, not just Friday, but the whole weekend. We were just talking about how special it was because Coach Gasso, I think the legacy that she has created for herself and for softball and for women, period, is so incredible. So to see her be able to build and get to the place where she was at Reeve, she went to Merida, now she's at Love's Field is just mind blowing. And I just think of all the things that she's done, and it just makes your heart happy because you're like, man, this is it. This is worth it. I was talking with Toby Baldwin. He's a sport admin for OU softball, and he was saying that this is the largest women's bi- stadium built for a women's sport and college that has ever been built. And I'm like, man, that is so cool because little kids are walking in here and they're saying, this is normal. This is great, but this is normal. Of course. Of course, stadiums should look like this. And so for me, getting to see that level and it be, yeah, that's normal, of course, is so incredible. So what it meant, not just to see that beautiful stadium, but what it means for sports, female sports in the future, it was just such a special moment to be a part of.
Got to talk with DJ Sanchez, excuse me, and she talked about how when she
DJ
stepped
Khaled, DJ Sanchez,
all of
it's
it,
easy.
another one. She talked about like when you looked at it, you stepped in and it felt like it was a Major League Baseball ballpark, like that style of ballpark, just scaled for college athletics, right? And I
Yeah.
thought that was really cool. And it really felt like that. It felt like I got to walk around it a couple of times, and I'm sure you did, and no bad seats in the house. And
No
Patty
bad
Gasso,
seats.
yeah, she talked about how spacious it is, just how many seats are there. There's obviously the video board. It's a iconic showpiece, the state of Oklahoma video board. There's
Instant classic.
it's an instant classic. Did you happen to see it at night when the like outline was
I
LED?
haven't seen it at night. Josie was bragging about it, and he was like, I told them, you know what we should do? We should do some LED lights. So whenever you're driving at night, you can see it illuminated from the road and you could be like, what's that? And you still notice the stadium even in the nighttime. And I just the details, everything. So incredible. Yeah. Iconic though.
All the way down to the old Marita Hines wall out
Oh,
in the third baseline. When you saw that, what did that do to you? Knowing like I played in front of that wall.
that might be my favorite thing. I think because Coach Gasso always talks about how the players before us, you have players like Melissa Lombardi, you have players like Jen Rocha, you have players like Lauren Chamberlain, Amber Flores, like amazing athletes who came before us and had to play at Reeves Park, who played at Marita Hines and brought those fans in and built that fan base. And she was like, that's what they built. Like you're getting to be where you are now because of them. Um, and she always emphasized like looking back at what past teams had done and learning from them and knowing that and connecting that and knowing your history as a softball program. And so to be able to see those walls just up there, how cool, right? I was just so special because it was like, man, like I was a part of that. And you could see everybody who has been a part of that from early on up until this last 2023 season. So it was just very, very incredibly special.
It's the pad you pulled down. It's the pad that everyone when you see Oklahoma win a super regional, sprint out to the outfield, bring it back in, that now hangs at Love's Field. And I thought that was for me that was the coolest thing on the stadium side. Hearing stuff about there's a full size artificial turf infield underneath that then the ceiling's high enough that you can hit pop flies and the batting cages come down from the ceiling. So like all of that stuff's gonna be
Yeah,
so cool when it's done.
it's beautiful. I got to walk through right now that side of that indoor space, that locker room, that medical room, training room, all that. Right now, that weight room, it's unfinished. It is a skeleton of what it is going to be, but their emphasis was we want to build this with the convenience in mind. We want to build this with the athlete in mind. We want to build this for not just this athlete, but the athlete 8 years from now, 10 years from now. Like, are they going to be able to enjoy these amenities? And so I think it's just really incredible.
It's an unbelievable scene, Nicole, and over 13,000 fans across 3 days packed in to see 5 fun contests in different ways, 2 absolute thrillers. The weekend was bookended by a 7th inning comeback, another 7th inning comeback that pushed into 8 innings, and a record was snapped. We'll dive into all that. But first, let's go to that Miami of Ohio game on Friday, the opener. Patty Gasso, the whole weekend, she talked about how with all of the fans in there and it being right on top of you, it felt like a Women's College World Series atmosphere, something that usually you ramp up into. And we've talked about this with all the newcomers, right, Nicole, that usually you get a Hall of Fame Classic. So you play in the stadium in OKC, 5,000 fans. Then you get regionals and supers and the Big 12 tournament. Then you're able to like build up into that. But in the middle of March, you just toss that down. It was really emotional for the team. On top of that, Nicole, they didn't get to step onto the field and actually play on it until Friday. So they're learning
Okay.
how the ball plays after off the wall. They're learning, oh, when it clears a pop fly, when it clears the overhang, the wind gets after it, does different things. And on top of that, they were facing off against Miami of Ohio, who had come into the weekend with the most home runs in college softball, did nothing to hurt that case as they blasted 5. It was a thrilling game on Friday.
Yeah, Friday was such a fun game, and I think what a way to open up Love's Field. I mean, how fitting. Yes, everybody loves the run roll, but whenever you get games like that, I mean, games like that grow the game. Games like that make fans of the sport, fans of the teams. Whether you're Miami, Ohio, or you're Oklahoma, you're like, man, that was a great game. Like, I enjoyed that. You're in it the whole time. I know as an announcer, I was like, oh wow, this is such a great back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I just think that whenever you're Oklahoma, you are waiting on this day. I mean, we talked about, okay, you see the little poster, it's going to be the field you're going to play on one day. And these seniors in their last year, they're getting to play on this. And I mean, there's 10 of them. There's a lot. So being able to experience that, being able to go through that is so big. And then it's your first game ever in college. And it's at this brand new stadium. And then I was talking to Cassidy Pickering's parents, and they were saying, yeah, Cass told us they're really loud. Like everything just kind of echoes whenever you're on the field. And I was like, yeah, that's World Series feel right there. And if you can get that, it sucks that Sunday they ended up losing. But if you can get that and you can experience that day in, day out during conference, you're not going to be surprised. You're going to be like, yeah, this is normal. This is normal. I thrive in this kind of environment. So I think it's amazing what that opening day was. The performance, the battle, the back and forth, the crowd. I mean, just goosebumps the entire night.
It was incredible. I'm imagining what it's going to be like Baylor series, what it's going to be like for Bedlam, and certainly for postseason when that comes around, it's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And case in point to what you're talking about, Nicole. Nicole May got the start in the circle. She is always outwardly as cool, calm, collected. This is someone that, as a true freshman, started a super regional game that appeared on ABC. This is someone that's been through 3 wars at the Women's College World Series as far as the different trips Oklahoma's been through. And she looked like as close to nervous as I've ever seen Nicole May look. And I think it just kind of speaks to everyone knew what that meant, going all the way to the dedication ceremony that was so great at 11 a.m., being up early. It was such a long day, learning the stadium, wanting to put on a show for the fans, all that. It was a really emotional day. And you could tell at the end of Friday, we talked to Kinsey Hansen and we talked to Alina Torres, and they were just drained.
Yeah. They had a lot of emotion. They had to get to the stadium at 9 a.m. On Friday and get their hitting in just because there's timing. There's so much stuff to do. You had the ceremony. They spoke at the ceremony. There was a little private meet and greet before everyone else was allowed on the stadium. They got a peek, and then you go back and you re-warm up, and then you get onto the field. First time ever. There's a lot of chaos and moving. They were being shuttled, like we talked about, the indoor, not quite ready yet. So shuttled between Merida and then you warm up, and then you go, okay, you got to hop on the shuttle bus. And then you go back to Love's Field, and it's just a lot of chaos. So I can definitely imagine how tired they must be, because also they're coming off of preseason. That was their last weekend of preseason, but they're coming off of a ton of traveling trips. I can just really drain a player. Preseason is not for the faint of heart, especially if you live in the Midwest and the weather is not great. So for them, the ability to find time to reel in their emotions, There wasn't a lot of that. And so you could definitely see the nerves with him this weekend.
Yeah, you saw the nerves on Friday. I think on Saturday they kind of had settled in a little bit more as they had two pretty clean performances. I've likened them. I've started calling them, Nicole, economic run rules, where you just get to 8 and that's enough, and you don't and it's not the 14, 15 pour it on type thing. Then you get to Sunday where it was a Louisiana team they'd already beaten. I think that mentally, and after the game, Kinsey Hansen, what she was not letting this happen as an excuse that they were mentally drained, anything like that. But Patty Gasso talked about they needed the rest. It was a draining weekend, and you got a Louisiana team. Huge credit to them; they were up for it. But at the same time, it's about as a mistake riddled game as I've ever seen. Like a Patty
It was
Gasso.
an ugly game. Let's call it what it is, Ryan. It was an ugly game.
It was. I mean, you got 3 errors that were credited, a couple more plays that weren't errors but
Could
should
have
have
been
been.
5.
Yeah, by Brito or Tiare, like plays that they normally make that
Could
didn't
have been
happen.
6. Yeah.
Yeah, you had 2 mistakes on second base, one of Jada Coleman leaving early, the other Kinsey Hansen being aggressive. And basically, the reason the 7th inning happens because not Miami, Ohio, excuse me, Louisville, uh, Louisiana, third time's a charm. We're all coming down from it, but Louisiana misplays one of those balls that goes from protected on the overhang into the shallow outfield. You get a ball go through a catcher's legs who had been a stud. Um, it was a miracle Oklahoma was frankly in that game, walked in 2 runs. Before we talk about the game, I want to ask you about this. You were a part of that 21 team that was chasing the home run record, not something that was like active like you guys were thinking about, but it was there. How much of an extra, as you got further and further into the season and teams knew you were inching up on that, did you sense any extra juice from like pitching staffs and stuff? Like, I want to shut this down, anything extra? Because it feels like when this team's on the win streak that they're on, and you guys had huge win streaks all throughout your career, the more closer and closer you get to like a 30 or a 40 or a 50, like it doesn't matter if you've been run ruled by Oklahoma. Every team is as fired up as can be to hop on and try and snap that streak.
I think whenever you win a lot, it's really hard to stay hungry all the time. You still want to search for success, but it becomes difficult to compare yourself against what you can do. And that's always a goal, right? And I think Oklahoma, they handle it so well. And after a while, it can get really hard, especially whenever you're tired, especially whenever you're fatigued. Now, excuses? No. It was a mistake riddled game. And Louisiana they played better. They did. They had a better scout plan. They had better execution. They caught Oklahoma off guard. They made the right plays. And then Oklahoma just made enough wrong plays for everything to fall into their favor. But I think it can be really hard whenever you're in that win streak. And I think Oklahoma does a good job of not paying attention to it. But it's more so self team. How do you stay hungry? How do you stay challenged? And it's not that you're not wanting to win. It's not that you're not wanting to get better, but it's just difficult. It's difficult. And I remember that senior year, our streak got snapped by Georgia. And we were not expecting that at all. I mean, we took that game and we prepped for it. We were ready for it. We were excited for it. And we wanted to go into that game giving it our all. And a couple of errors, a couple of mistakes, things go right for the other team. And we found ourselves with a loss. But I know one thing is you get that loss. What do you immediately do afterwards? So I am really excited to see Oklahoma bounce back on Tuesday. I think their response is going to be very, very telling. Their response is going to be everything. And if you can figure out, okay, that's done. It is what it is. That was great. That was historic. We still have a season. We still want to end at number 1 at the very last game. But that circle, they're going to be able to move past that pretty quickly. If they were too wrapped up and too focused on the streak, it'll take them a little bit to get back into the groove. So I think it's just a matter of priorities. And now they have that, okay, well, now we have something to prove. Now there's a standard which we can measure ourselves against again. And I think their response is going to be very, very telling.
I would love to be able to sit back and view that practice on Tuesday. I bet it's the best one of the year, not close. Like one of those things. And then I think that Oklahoma's obviously crush.
Pretty sure they play
Well, they play Wednesday. They've got A&M Commerce
Wednesday.
on Wednesday. I was about to say Oklahoma crushed by losing, as anyone always is. I think that the second saddest team in the country was poor Texas A&M Commerce, who will be walking into. Good luck, have fun. We won't hold that one against you, to our friends from A&M Commerce. But you look at it, and I almost get a sense, Nicole, that we talked to Jada Coleman today on the radio show, and she was just like, yeah, you lose games in softball. Everyone knew that was going to happen. And to a certain extent, I think that this allows the team to exhale. That they've not looked as crisp as they're going to in June, but Patty Gasso knows, that locker room knows, if you play your best softball in February, you're not going to win a national championship. It doesn't matter how good you are. And so, and two, you look at it, and it's not like they were just outgunned in this game. And oh my gosh, like Kinsey Hansen never drops the ball at home plate. That happened. You got more errors and scuffed balls from Tiare and Alyssa Brito than you'll get probably through half of Big 12 play combined. Carly Keedy doesn't just walk in two run. Like it felt like anything that could go wrong went wrong for
Ella
Oklahoma.
Parker missing first.
Yeah, like just not running through. And Patty Gasso after the game talked about that it was a runner's interference. So missing first, but also just not running through the bag. Like all those little things that like you would have to. It's a miracle. Like if Kinsey Hansen dropped a ball like that at home plate, and that's the only thing that happened in the game, you'd be like, what just happened? Like that doesn't happen with Kinsey Hansen, and it did. It was just the perfect sort of everything going wrong. And you know what? I would be stunned if they don't battle back and they're not better from it. And if almost they can play free and loose again, because that, even if they're not thinking about it on top of mind, subconsciously it has to be there, knowing that every team's looking to snap a streak. Whereas now it's just the typical. Every team wants to beat Oklahoma because they're the standard in college softball, as opposed to they're the standard and also on a 71 game win streak and all the stuff that comes with that.
Yeah. And I think, again, if you can always challenge yourself to be better, but if you're winning games, you're like, yes, I could be better, but we won, right? And Oklahoma does such a good job with the little things. That's what makes them so good. And they did not do that on Sunday. And so the ability to go, okay, all these things went wrong and we didn't win. We got to go back to it. I mean, I don't think they need to change everything, but they do need to lock in a little bit more on the little things. They need to get sharp on the little things, because honestly, and this is coming from an alum, this is coming from somebody who loves softball, who loves that program. Honestly, they haven't looked very sharp in those little details. And don't get me wrong, the bats have been great. The pitching has been great. They faltered a little bit this weekend, but there's been moments where you're like, those little things didn't look sharp. And so I think it just kept building and building. Now is the grand crescendo, right? And I think this is the moment for them to look back and notice all those little things and how they added up to that moment on Sunday and go, okay, we got to get a little bit sharper on the little things. We need to be tighter on the details. It doesn't matter if you're tired or not. If you do a little thing right consistently all the time, it's going to pay off. So I think nothing better could have happened for Oklahoma. I think this is going to change their season of where they are at the end in June.
It reminds me of last year. It didn't look right. It didn't look totally locked in together. They lose that Baylor game, and it didn't even really look like the first couple of days of the Mary Nutter. It was kind of that UCLA game where I think that they were like, that team's now number one. We want that back. It was 14-0, and then from there, rolled. And it rolled.
Yeah.
And so, like if I were an Oklahoma fan today, here on Tuesday, I would have hoped that everyone ranked him number 2. Like that, like I know that there's a lot of that would be the best thing for that locker room. If you know anything about this team, that would be like the best thing in the world for them to be chasing Texas the whole year or whatever that is. It would only be helpful.
I cannot wait for that matchup. Texas looks so good. Oklahoma, obviously, they're fantastic. That matchup is going to be insane. Insane.
So I've already got the
You
hotel.
need to put that game on ABC.
Yeah, they need to flex it up because I've got the hotel booked for Austin. I told my boss before the year, I was like, This series is going to be the series of the year, and we've only looked more and more right as everything has panned out, which has me stoked. It's like the one time a year I'm right on like one thing a year, and that was it this year. And I was like, cool,
Hey,
I'm happy.
you know what? Let's go back to year one of our radio show.
I was waiting
I
for
was
this.
talking about the Cajuns, and you gave me so much crap for 2 years. I mean, revenge is a dish best served cold. 3 years later, and here it is, Ryan. Hurts my heart that I have to serve it against Oklahoma, but here it is. I told you about them.
It's a dish best served with gumbo. I think is
Yes,
probably
with
what we
gumbo.
gumbo, little po' boy action. I jokingly before the year was like, we have to have you on to preview when Louisiana comes to town. The Cajuns, your Cajuns will be here. And look what happens. Everyone
That's what you get for mocking me.
send your hate mail
Oh my
to
goodness.
Nicole. Hey, before we hop out of here, is there anything else from the weekend that stuck out to you before we let you pump all of the great stuff that you're doing as you've gotten so much bigger than hanging out with schmucks like me?
Ah, schmucks. I would say the fans. The fans were unreal. It felt again like a World Series game, not even postseason, a World Series game. The way that the stands just rise up, the way that the crowd was just on their feet so loud. It was such a roar. If you're Oklahoma, you're saying, thank you for supporting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for preparing us for the World Series, for high pressure situations. Um, they were incredible. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing, again, like you said, a couple of matchups with Baylor, Oklahoma State, postseason. The feeling in that stadium, it felt professional. It felt next level, and you could see it, you could feel it, you can hear it. The fans were awesome. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on that. Like everything about that weekend was pretty special, but the fans were fantastic.
It's gonna be fun. It's a weird thing. It feels like we're going to see Love's Field grow a little bit this year too, just because obviously
Yeah.
it was ready to host a game. Some of the cosmetic stuff not 100% done. A lot of the work still to be done is like little press box stuff, which is totally fine. As you mentioned, the team areas, some of the guts of the stadium, some of the real amenities that the team's going to get to enjoy. But I'm curious. It's going to look a little bit different. They're going to have it landscaped around and not some of the dirt and stuff. So it's going to be
Mhm.
kind of cool for those fans that are able to make it out a couple of times in year one to see this grow and remember back to it looked amazing in weekend one, and it's going to look even better by postseason. It's going to be a fun ride to be on, as well as the ride that this team will be on together.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
It's awesome. Nicole, thank you so much for taking some time to hop on with us. This is not the only place you can find Nicole, though. Obviously, you have tons of coverage, wall to wall. It's incredible. Again, if you want to listen to OU softball coverage, first off, listen to Nicole, then come to All Sooners after that. But if you want rest of the Big 12, all that stuff, what all great stuff are you into this year?
Like you kind of mentioned at the beginning, I started a podcast, 10 teams, 2 rings. It is a bit of a tongue twister. I had to practice it a couple times before I got it right. But I'm just talking everything Big 12. So kind of expanding on what we did before. It was predominantly OU, then we kind of went across the country. It has been so fun being able to learn a lot more about not just the conference, but the newcomers. You have U of H, you have UCF, you have BYU. It's going to be a really fun year for Big 12. Man, it's a fun time. So I'm actually getting to interview tomorrow a really great athlete from Baylor. You have to tune in to find out who, but it has been fantastic just getting that insight and getting to talk about Big 12 as a whole.
It's great stuff, and no one does it like Nicole. You have to let me know the next time you get to link up with Mike White. Everyone knows he's my favorite human in the world. He's box office. Mike White's the best. I know people. Mike White's awesome. I love Mike White.
I'm saving. I've been wanting to talk to Texas. And I'm like, no, you have to save them. You have to save them for the week of OU Texas. You have to wait because that week leading up, it's all about preparation. It's all about nerves. It's all about everything everybody said early in the year, coming back to haunt them. It's about all the craziness, all the alums, all the fans. Texas fans, they're crazy, as they should be. I mean, I can't wait to hear all about it from your favorite Mike White. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be so fun.
Reese deserves a podcast every week, the way that
Oh
she's
my gosh,
playing.
I know.
Incredible. So, but for all of that, be sure you head over to listen to Nicole's awesome podcast, 10 Teams, 2 Rings, part of the expansive Softball America crew. They do a great job. Stoked to have them doing what they do in the world of softball because it's deserved. And I'm happy it's on this huge scale. But Nicole, thanks again for hopping on and for talking some Love's Field.
My favorite, as always. I feel like, again, as always, time always flies by whenever we're chatting. I always have a good time.
It does. But stay tuned. I'm not done here. On the other side, we'll talk with, basically I'll show you, here's what Patty Gasso had to say, Alyssa Brito, Jada Coleman, what Kinsey Hansen Tiara had to say Sunday after the loss, all that and more coming up. Stay with us on the AllSooners Softball Show. Again, big shout out to Nicole Mendes. She's so busy and she was so generous with her time. Hopping on, go check out her podcast, 10 Teams, 2 Rings, part of the Softball America podcast enterprise. All right, we're not going to dive into time to the games, game by game. Nicole and I talked about the Miami game, talked about the Louisiana game. Let's dive into what the players, what Patty Gasso had to say. First off, the emotion of the weekend. I thought Kinsey Hansen talked on Sunday about how she was not having, we were emotionally drained. She was not having that as an excuse for Sunday's loss, that flat out they didn't deserve to win the game. Louisiana played better. Oklahoma made all those mistakes. But on Saturday, we did talk to Alyssa Brito and Jada Coleman. They had some stuff to say. We're going to listen to Brito first and then Jada Coleman, not just about what it was like to play at Love's Field for the first time, but what kind of stood out. All of that as the Sooners took the field in their new home across 5 games this weekend.
I felt like yesterday, kind of, since it was the first time we'd been on there, it felt like a new home, kind of just like a visiting team in a way. But now we kind of got a feel for it and got a feel for the crowd too. So,
yeah, same. She said I was kind of just mesmerized about how many people were watching, and just being in the best stadium in the country is kind of hard to wrap my brain around while I was playing. But today was definitely more settled in.
That comment by Brito, that it kind of felt like a visiting, like the visiting team for a little bit, was consistent across the weekend. And of course, there's 4,500 Oklahoma fans packed in, yelling, backing. That's not the part that Oklahoma talked about, feeling like a visiting team. It was the fact that Alina Torres, she told us on Friday that in the pregame, they're having to throw balls off the wall to see how it plays and throw some stuff off the net and see how that plays. And that's stuff that you do when you go on the road. You don't have to do that as the home team because theoretically you've practiced, you know the stadium like the back of your hand. Oklahoma didn't know the stadium like the back of their hand, which is fine. It's something that Wednesday they'll get more practice in it. They've got a weekend series against Iowa State. As the construction areas under the stadium move along, they'll be able to get out there, get on the field surface and practice. And I think you saw it Sunday, I believe it was. Cassie Pickering tries to play a ball off the wall. It rockets off the wall a lot faster than she thought it was going to. And that's stuff that should get all tied up and all that. But something that maybe will be an adjustment period for the entire weekend, will be the entire year, that is. Felt like there was a real home run tunnel to right field. Jada Coleman talked about if you kind of pop it up, it could fly ball, looks like it goes, and suddenly it's out. The Oklahoma pitching staff had allowed 2 home runs all year long. They surrendered 8 across 5 games this past weekend. Here's what Patty Gasso had to say about the pitching specifically after things closed down on Sunday.
I don't think they had the best weekend, and they'll readily admit that to you. I mean, I don't know. I do feel that there was a little bit of pressure this weekend on everybody, really, but the pitchers felt it. It's uncharacteristic for them to give up the amount of home runs and give up runs, period, at times. So again, we're human, and to be on the streak that we're on is just unbelievable, ridiculously unbelievable. And we take pride in that, but it's over, and we knew it was going to end. It's just when. And so now we can just kind of let it go and get back to work and go back to who we are, which is blue collar, hardworking, hustling, grinding type team.
Wednesday, Oklahoma will have a chance to begin anew against Texas A&M Commerce before hosting the opening of Big 12 play Friday, Saturday, Sunday, games against Iowa State at Love's Field. Just a little programming note. because of some football stuff going on Wednesday, plus the game against A&M Commerce Wednesday night, I will not get a chance to record the AllSooners Softball Show after the midweek game on Wednesday. But as is the plan right now, should still have our media availability per usual on Tuesday. So when we regroup on Thursday, we'll be recapping everything that was said by Patty Gasso and the Sooners athletes we get to speak with on Tuesday, plus previewing Iowa State as the Sooners open things up. Remember, you can find all the softball content you want at allsooners.com. Every single press conference video, whether it be midweek or post-game, game recaps for every single game. Every Sunday, I'm writing my weekend wrap-up, my 3 to 5 biggest takeaways from whatever series just happening. Be sure you go on Twitter, _Ryan Chapman. The story pinned to my profile, talked with Jocelyn Allo, Kaylee Clifton, DJ Sanchez, Nicole Mendes about what Love's Field meant to them. Getting to see that thing open. It was a really, really cool story. Great stuff from all those ladies. So thankful that they gave me a little bit of their time to link up with them for that. But as always, for the entire AllSooners crew, John Hoover, Randall Sweet, Ross Lovelace, Bryce McKinnis, and myself, Ryan Chapman, be sure you head to the website, allsooners.com, for all your needs. And on the AllSooners Softball Show, we'll talk to you on Thursday.